Kevin O'Shaughnessy. I run a startup in Dublin called CityHook. We publish an API called Indigo Connect. That means we get people to and from the airport. And we've built things like this cool CityHook app, which is all of the mapping and inventory and payments and all of the hard problems we all solve in the business together, just to get from airport to downtown. I'm a travel tech geek. I deal with all of these technologies on a daily basis, so I thought I'd share some of these opinions based on just catching up over the last few years. It'll be kind of rapid. Every topic will talk a little bit about how it works and how to use it, and then I'm going to summarize this with a very simple picture. Is it bull, or is it a total buzz? Is this the best thing you should be prioritizing your IT strategy on, or is this something to wait a little bit longer on? So, starting with the Internet of Things, this is one of my favorite buzzwords because it talks about how compact you can make a connected device. Can you turn the entry system for your hotel into something that can be piloted from a mobile app? You've got Nest cameras. All of these devices are becoming increasingly connected. When I was an undergraduate in college, we were talking about something called the Java fridge. This is going back 15, 20 years ago when Java was a big thing and just emerging. And we talked about what it would be like if your fridge told you when you were at the supermarket, hey, you're out of milk. It's kind of coming to term now with the connectivity ease that we have, how small we can make a relatively decent computer. This is actually a supercomputer right there, and it now fits into your pocket. So we can do great things with IoT. The way it'll all come together is you'll have something built into something else. It will connect through the cloud to some other part of your business. It's kind of that simple, but what it means is you can deliver enhanced services. You can help users pilot part of your service offering through their own device. They can remote control their guest experience. It might be something on board an aircraft or inside the hotel room. Think about it though in terms of, if you saw my talk from last year, what the open wallet upgrade would be like. You buy your ticket today and you keep upgrading it over time, and all of that can be done with experiences that trigger something within the hotel room or on board. One of the drawbacks, though, when you talk about IoT, especially in the accommodation sector, is it turns the front desk of the hotel into something that looks a little bit more like this. It turns into mission control. All of the connected systems have to work flawlessly together. So when you're thinking about your IoT strategy, think about just your normal procurement process and how you should focus on every new piece of equipment or hardware coming into your environment having an API, some way of connecting to it one way or the other. So when your vendor for your water boiler or your lighting systems is talking to you, ask them what kind of connectivity options do we have. Something that you should probably be working on anyway in accommodation is great cracking Wi-Fi. That's a perfect connection. We can be working on that kind of stuff right now, and then try to think about how you're going to unload the complexity from the front desk when things come to pass. So, is IoT right now, today, is it bull or is it buzz? For me, it's buzz. I'll talk a little bit at the end of the presentation about what kind of timelines you should be looking at for this, but for me, it's something that's here, it's something that's very real, and it can make our lives an awful lot easier. Artificial intelligence as a topic has been around in our vocabulary for about 7 years in the business. And when we think about artificial intelligence, this is what media says. It's iRobot, it's the Terminator in Skynet, or it's the Matrix. That's not really what kind of AI we have in the business is already. It's more like this, simultaneous equations. It's very simple derivations of patterns. Apple have recently launched machine learning as a toolkit. Google have a great offering in the cloud. You can download your own and run it wherever you like, as well as Amazon. So there's a lot of off-the-shelf ways of getting pretty decent machine learning toolkits into your software. Think about it in terms of having key algorithms, and that might be like predicting what a user behavior will be given a certain pattern of activity. You will then train it. So once you've conceived a hypothetical model, you'll train it with your data. That means you've got a big honking database you can just feed into an idea somewhere. You'll create a model and then that runs in production. So there is that separation of what your data does before you set it up. You set it up, it becomes portable, and then you can run it anywhere. This is Amazon's slide. They call it build, train, tune, and deploy. Very, very simple, and it's the same type of model that Apple is using for machine learning as well. You do all of the supercomputer processing before you install it on every user's iPhone, and that means that you can do really cool things like picking the right fare for them, delivering the right experience for them based on their preferences, that kind of thing, all on the mobile app. If you do economics or you're in science at a high level, you'll come across something called Mathematica. You might have also heard of the search engine called Wolfram Alpha. This is Stephen Wolfram that gave it its name. At a lecture in MIT, he said, look, AI can automate anything we can define. The problem is, how do we define it? If you've caught up with the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy at all, there's an in-joke in there. But it's really, really hard to specify what it is we're trying to do. Once you do and you have a model for it, feeding the data in the beginning means you can automate that in the future. So today, robots aren't taking over, the marketers are taking over. If you take really, really good models and apply it to, say, advertising, you can turn it into a wonderful conversion tool. But today you can start collecting data. If you're transacting or you're in any kind of travel business, starting to collect data, just put it somewhere safe, keep it for later, is the right way to start. It's relatively low cost and anybody can start that today. And then when the volume gets high enough, consider it a project for 20% time for your engineers, so a B project, something for an intern, or a collaboration with a PhD or a university. Artificial intelligence is good at recognition, or some recognition. Speech recognition in particular, face recognition not so much. Identification, yes, but recognition, no. Variations within a pattern, it can say, is something kind of close to this pattern A or this pattern B. You can use it to derive hundreds of different A, B, C, D, E, F, G tests that you can trial and find which is the right way I can construct my experience for users booking. And then you can start thinking about, especially in travel, a good AI model that you've trained well can help you based on very, very simple inputs for a user using your website or mobile application, forward the right product for them to pick. And the guys running the labs in Ryanair are all over this. They think this is the future, and so do I. They're bad at being human. We're safe. They're not taking over. It's not real artificial intelligence. It's just good math, which is why I think it's bold just from the point of view of the name. It's very deceiving, but it's a great way to enhance your product if you already have one in the future. Taking a step back from devices and really, really, really difficult maths, something that I want to look at is the space of conversational user interfaces. When we build for travel transactions, it's usually a website or a mobile application, and that's a pretty standard form. You've got an inspiration space, you've got somewhere that people will start booking, add it to a cart, check out, and then go. It's a pretty standard flow, and there are great variations on this, but usually it's backed by inventory, and there's a series of web screens that we expect to see in travel. Conversational UI takes us from screen to screen using our voice or using text instead of using a screen. So instead of a screen, you'll have a message-based chat, or maybe it'll be voice-based. You can build your own or use the assistant platforms. And a lot of this is being driven by how cool it is to speak to your phone or to speak to a magic speaker in your house. The technologies behind this, whether it's Google, whether it's Apple Siri, Cortana from Microsoft, this has been around about 10 years, by the way, it's pretty cool. And Alexa for the Echo speaker. These are technologies that help you build an application around voice pretty quickly. Meaning you've got your service here, this might be your reservation system, you're booking through your service, and you've got these guys in the middle between the user and you, and they'll be interacting either using their own voice, using an application, using a voice appliance like a speaker, or using a messaging application like Facebook Messenger or something like that. These guys will figure out, based on some of the interactions your platform allows, like book a bed or check in for my flight, they'll call your service using your own API calls, or they'll trigger a webhook or something else. And at some point you might hand over back to the user using your own application. So the flow is maybe a little bit more unorthodox, but it does mean that you can start your travel reservation by Alexa, find me somewhere decent to go for the weekend. Alexa calls your API, and then you fire it back to the user using your app, where you can pick up the relationship and continue the transaction. This is an example I found from a guy called Brian Byrne. This is how you'd ask Alexa, Alexa, this is how you wake up Alexa. the launch command for Lyft, for example, and then this is something that will actually be handed over to Lyft at the end of the day, and it's up to Lyft then to figure out using your mobile, using the Lyft mobile application, where to send the car. To build your first conversational UI, you need to have an API in place. So if you're dealing with partners, you probably have this already. Chances are the systems that you're running your inventory through already have it, but think about the world in terms of how you make a booking using the web. Without the web, that's what really an API is all about. It's having that raw capability exposed using an API. Use as little development as possible to get to a version 1, because all of the platforms are similar in operation, but they're all very different. It means that you have to deliver for 3, 2, or all 4 platforms. Grow and adapt this over time, learning from all of the feedback that you're getting from users. And this is still quite new. There's still a little runway left to be revolutionary and new sounding by developing your own conversational UI. On our side, we're looking at Alexa. It's pretty cool. It's a very simple way to get up and running using taxi hailing, for example. Do I think this is bull or is it a buzz? I think it's a buzz. Peak in me is kind of coming out here. I really like how easy it is to start building meaningful, simple, the word there is simple applications, where the user already knows who you are and what you can do. On mobile again, the space of messenger applications. These are enhancements for existing message platforms, such as iMessage or Google Android messages. Facebook, WeChat, of course, it's been there forever. You can embed content or interactive content, and it has a natural social part of the application built in. This is my iPhone screen earlier today, and these are the applications that I've already installed on my device, but I can interact with them while I'm talking to somebody else. So, for example, I can use Citymapper or I can use a translator to tell somebody, for example, about a flight. I can send that through the message stream back to the other person, and they can pick up on it, learn about it through Kayak, and then make a booking through Kayak. And if they're not already a Kayak user, they'll be incentivized to download it because I've effectively recommended the Kayak application. No interruptions, no switching applications, no getting distracted. A really simple way of embedding your experience right into a conversation between 2 other people. I think that's a really, really cool way to discover new applications and to enhance the application that's already installed somewhere on screen 4 that we've lost where to find it. This is another example. This is my boarding card from 2 days ago. How to get from one place to the other, or a translator. I can just type in English and it'll come through in French. Do I think this is bull or it's buzz? Again, buzz, because once you're already developing your mobile applications, you can start sneaking in little parts of these functionalities iteratively over time. Collecting feedback, understanding what users are reacting to, whether it's just something simple like a sticker, or in the case of Google, for example, they'll just throw their entire website into their embedded application. So it's a pretty easy way to get going straight away and still seem innovative. Chatbots are still making the rounds. We saw the first of them back in about 2016, and it's a way where you can plug from, say, your phone number for your customer service. You can plug in something that will automatically respond to free-form user questions. You'd start off by saying, hi, and one of your robots will respond with, yes, hello, how can I help? This is the sort of thing that we can do together. There's basic natural language processing going on here, but what that'll turn into is something called an intent. So somebody will come to our chat window, for example, and go, well, where is my ticket? And the bot will be able to respond with, you're looking for a ticket, this is how to get your ticket. It can leverage existing interactions, or it can leverage your content from your knowledge base. It's really easy to get started with bots, but it's also really, really easy to get it wrong. Think about where we were back in 1997, 2000. This was everybody's homepage on the internet. It was a portal into hundreds of little links, tiny little search feature up on the top, which usually wasn't very good. It's evolved. It is now the all-knowing search box. We tell Google what we want Google to find us. I think this is the third step. Instead of us structuring a two-dimensional interface with multiple screens, a user can just come to us and go, listen, I've no idea how to use your website, I don't really care, but I'd like you to start telling me how to do something with your service, like check me in, or get me a taxi, or whatever you need to do. So chat to transact, instead of going from a search experience to the website with Google, or that old-fashioned directory DMOZ, Yahoo kind of thing from way back when. Plugging bots into existing services is actually kind of simple. I'll show you a tool at the end of this that we use, but there's quite a lot that's going on. In terms of the messaging platforms, this came from SimilarWeb. It's pretty much Facebook running the show with some WeChat, some Viber, some Telegram there in Iran, some different platforms that are out there, but it's basically Facebook running the show for the non-native messaging app. Meaning, if you're plugging into a messaging application today, you can plug in pretty quickly with Facebook. It's a little bit tougher, but they'll eventually come around. There's some stuff on their roadmap that they've started sharing. They're going to be a little bit more open to business. They already are actually, but they're going to be open to more bots and stuff like that. It means that you can have a number where somebody can SMS you, or somebody can plug into your Facebook application and say, hello, Mr. City Hook, I'd like to know how to do X. And that's where you start wiring in. This is your patch bay in the back. You've got a phone number, you've got a phone number for Telegram, you've got a phone number on WhatsApp, you've got a profile on Facebook. You can start patching around on the back to say, I'm going to bring all of this traffic to my central support desk, and then start having the first responder being a bot, for example. This is Skyscanner's from back in 2016. You can see a kind of a conversation going on here where you've got prompts there where somebody can actually type, well, I don't know, or you can click on the I don't know there to keep the thing going. But you'll get to the point where you've started to compose your trip and getting the booking going. Every time you capture what the user is talking about, we'll call that an intent. It's when you distill down all the noise, all the blah blah that goes around it. It's like they've clicked on a button. That's called an intent. Think of it as a button in terms of programming in the past. That'll fit into a flow for the transaction. So you'll know that, well, we have to get the user from here to here. Again, in the travel landscape, it is search, select, hold, book, the whole thing. That's a flow. And then there's either an interaction or there's some content. And that's the easy place to start with bots. If you already have a chat support desk or a telephone support system, you can plug this into, much like the old-fashioned press 1 to talk about a new reservation, or press 2 to talk about an existing one. A content management system plugged into your chat interface is actually a great way to direct users in the first place and to deliver a certain amount of self-service. I'm bringing this up because a lot of good travel brands, some of you here hopefully have already got a good knowledge base, and that's something that you can distill down one step further and turn it into something that you can control and start feeding that into a potential bot application. So, all told, do I think that chatbots are the best thing in the world? I don't. I really don't. They're not for today. But starting off with that application where you can say, I'll take my knowledge base, I'll start to adapt it, I'll turn that into a first responder mechanism for users, and I'll just be honest about it and say, listen, this is all I can do as a bot. That's a great place to start. The platform that we use is called Smooch. It's kind of like an aggregator of all of the technologies that you can use around chat. So the first, if you head over to our website, you'll see a little ball in the bottom, and when you click on that, it goes through Smooch and then into Telegram or into SMS or into Facebook. You can think of it as a switch, a dispatch system for chat. And they integrate already with all of the AI systems, all of the bot management systems, all the cool stuff that means that you can deliver a great user experience starting from very, very little. This is the controversial part of my presentation. It's something that I'm delivering really as an opinion piece. I really wanted to give a good amount of time to this, so I'm going to take this from very, very simple steps. Has everybody heard of blockchain here? Can I get a quick show of hands? Everybody heard of blockchain? Anybody working in blockchain? Okay. So this is, I'm not selling blockchain. I'm not going to diss it yet, but I think it's something that we should all really take a look at properly. And just in a pure sense, there is a lot of noise out there. So I'm going to give a CTO version of what a blockchain is and what it does. Taking it from three angles. One as a place to store data, one as an overall economic piece, and another as, there's kind of a movement here. It's a space, and it's a kind of a cool space. As a database, I'm going to talk about how it works. And to do that, I'm going to use an example we might have all seen before. Some of you might know that when you're looking at a credit card number, the last two digits are kind of a throwaway. They prove that the rest of the credit card number is correct. It's called the LUN number. And you could think of that as a way to say, if I take these numbers, put it through an algorithm called the LUN algorithm, I'll get two digits that say everything else so far is okay. Banks use it for big, long numbers. You use it for your credit card number. But we could call that kind of an analog to what's happening at the deepest level inside the blockchain database. That proves that that's correct. This is another way, this is something that's central to the blockchain principle. It's called hashing. I'm using an MD5 hash. The geeks among us will know that there's better hashing than MD5. But if I take the MD5 of hello, it'll come out with this big long squiggly thing that looks nothing like hello. But that is the signature that's unique to hello, and no matter how many times I get the MD5 of that piece of text, I will always get this. It's unique to that, and it's completely unpredictable. If I change some part of it, like turn it into an uppercase H for hello, it'll be completely different. There is no uppercase B. It's exactly the same for both. It's exactly different for both, even though they're semantically the same. Or I can take a giant file full of hundreds and hundreds of thousands of transactions, get an MD5 of that, and here we go. It's just about the same length, and it tells me that that file, no matter what's inside it, if I change one tiny little thing, that's going to be a completely different hash. Now, what you can do with that is to say that at this point in time, I'm going to take this transaction, I'm going to create a hash of it, and we'll know that you could have never, ever, between now, the past, or in the future, have gotten that hash if you change one tiny detail in there. So we call that cryptographically secure. When it comes to a blockchain, the chaining concept comes from saying that here we've got a transaction, it's the first one, I'm going to put it through this magical hashing function, I'll get a hash. But every subsequent transaction that I have in this data repository, this data place, I won't call it a blockchain yet, but you'll see where it's coming from, I'll take that hash, I'll add it to the second record I'm going to process, I'm going to hash that, and I'm going to get a new hash. It is therefore cryptographically impossible to get this without that being valid and that being a valid hash of it. So we can create hierarchy or a history of perfectly proven, legitimately correct transactions just by taking a hash of things over time. We know about, in popular culture anyway, we know about blockchain because possibly Bitcoin, and it's not something that fits in your pocket, it's not something that fits in a file on a disk, it's a protocol, it's a thing that converts rather than just something that is all on its own. What happens is a block is created with multiple transactions in there. There is specific code for the Bitcoin protocol, it's a Bitcoin mining code. Previous hashes go in there, and from that, a fee is generated automatically for the person that mines it, and that hash that we need in the future is created. The guys that know about Bitcoin will know how and exactly where. I'm being simplistic about it. But the key thing is that multiple transactions are being grouped. It's going through something that's very specific to Bitcoin, meaning that a Bitcoin blockchain will be different to another blockchain, but the Bitcoin blockchain will do two things. It'll create the hash, and at the same time, it'll create the fee for the person mining it. And what mining is it's the way that something gets verified, and you're effectively paying to verify that the transaction happened. The people who do the verifying, in the slang that's in the business, or the technical term, is a miner. And specifically at the beginning, the spirit of it is that, yes, anybody can verify the entire chain. Now, whether or not this happens in practical terms or not, it still is possible for anybody to pick up the entire blockchain for Bitcoin and verify it one transaction at a time. This is controversial, but the blockchain as a database is wildly inefficient by design. It is not a database in the traditional sense where something is supposed to happen in a fraction of a second. And that is the way that algorithmically we prove that it's correct. If you could just do it quickly, there'd be absolutely no penalty on something happening and being faked in the future. It is slow today. There's steps being taken to get rid of that. There are other types of blockchains other than Bitcoin. And forks are something to watch out as the new devaluations. When things get a little bit tough, people will fork and go somewhere else. Just to talk about miners for a second, we've seen this kind of graph before. It's spiked, it's coming back down, it'll go up again. It's turned Bitcoin from a transaction class of instrument into an asset class of instrument. It's quite slow to generate a new Bitcoin because of the way it's been designed originally. But it also means that in order to verify it, a miner has to be, and the real miners, the ones that are actually getting the most value out of the network because there's a monetary incentive to do it, which means that imagine you're selling something on using Bitcoin as a way to exchange for it, and there's a transaction going on. It's going to go through somewhere like this. There is so much work that needs to happen to verify one single block emission with your transaction in there. It's going to go through one of these. There's very few of them in the world. There's 6 major data centers that look like this. This is not PCI DSS compliant, by the way. It doesn't need to be, but this is not our normal kind of data center. It's a lot of hacked together hardware. It's kind of cool. It's kind of the stream punk of IT centers. But it goes through somewhere like this because this is the only place that's capable of getting it done fast. Now, whether it's for Ethereum or for Bitcoin or any of the new cryptocurrencies, it needs to go through somewhere like this because the more proof you can say that something is correct, the more likely it is that you're going to get paid for it. That's part one of what this looks like, and it's in northwest Mongolia where the power is so cheap that you can run hundreds, maybe thousands and thousands of those computing units just to get that one validation done. Once it's validated, and it's been proven validated, you can't go back from there. That's it. It's semi-permanent. Especially over time, once it's gone on long enough, it'll be very permanent. We were looking at a data center over here somewhere. It's not really marked. There's 11,000 active nodes processing Bitcoin today. Different networks will have different numbers. You'll probably have data centers doing different types of crypto. But there's a lot of different things happening just to make sure that that one transaction that you've handed from one person to another is true. Not what we normally consider a database. You'll hear a lot of this. Blockchain makes something the replacement for something else. And this is where, I'm listening. I'm definitely listening because there's a lot happening out there. You'll get some sort of a business model, plus a transactional need, and something that needs some startup funding. And you'll get something called an initial coin offering. And this is where a lot of the buzz has been happening. That's kind of cool. But at the end of the day, it's just a database. It's a slow database, it's a secure database, but it's just a database with the promise to transact at the same time. An alternative to working with blockchain is to just write better software. We're in a business where we're dealing with hundreds of thousands of transactions every day. I think Visa and MasterCard are running about 50,000 transactions per second. If we want to improve the business, we don't have to change everything we're doing. We could just write better software. Or if we're not geeks, we could just encourage a different type of collaboration. The before and after blockchain model, where we have that hotel site selling through this app, was, and currently is, you've got some inventory going on this app over here. It might be working through a partner. That's a copy of the data that says there are 10 beds available. And you've got the hotel site saying, well, we've got about 10 beds available, and it's stored in 2 places, and that's obviously inefficient. But what's not visible here on this is that when you're working with a blockchain from a centralized perspective, you've also got your own copy of the blockchain when it comes to processing. It's not quite the promise that it turns out to be in the beginning. And when you think of what it's like, and from our line of work, we are an aggregator, but not a hotel. Just thinking about what it's like to do, being a good aggregator, whether you're Booking.com or somebody else. Today, do they do inventory management? You know what? It's possible. It is possible to do inventory management with a good aggregator today. Do they do customer acquisition? Yes, and I think that that's the entire value proposition right there. If we stopped on this table and just said there, the role of Booking.com or any other intermediaries to drive traffic, for me, that's the business model. Everything else that happens after that is a wonderful coincidence. They do customer onboarding, checkout, they manage the booking. Do fees apply? Yes, but they do take a commission, which is bad. That means that for the consumer, yes, the prices are higher, but these are the guys paying Google or any other channel that got the customer there in the first place. Okay, upgrades are possible. Yes, it's still software, it's still messy, it's still tough, but yes, chargebacks are possible. That's a risk. You've got refunds. Yes, that's possible. And customer service, that's possible. The typical travel blockchain story is generally inventory management is possible. It's messy, but it's possible. There's no customer acquisition. And I say no a lot here because there's a lot of story like bring your own software in this space. The travel tech ICOs for blockchain-related startups say, we'll write the somebody else will write the software for you, or you'll write your own software. It'll be part of the network. But payments are natively handled by, meaning that when the bed is sold, the money comes in, there is no dispute in it. It can't be disputed. And there's something quite elegant about that, but still, for me, it's not how the business works today. So those startups assume that you'll bring your own software. It's not a fully fledged solution. which kind of reminds me about how many times I've seen CSS frameworks being written by developers instead of just writing the damn CSS. Complete rant, complete side note, but there is still room for disruption. If you're a third party that doesn't do that key piece of acquiring the traffic in the first place, if you're not driving business towards somebody as an aggregator, you're in line for the bullet. That's not going to be pleasant for you. There's a huge cost of reporting for some aspects of the travel business. You're dealing with hundreds and hundreds of complex Excel spreadsheets flying around between 2 or 3 different companies. That's a compelling use case for blockchain. And where there's no security today, for example, in loyalty programs, relatively low security, you can't really prove that somebody's earned points or not. Review sites, I think those guys will be the first against the wall, personally. I'm not talking about TripAdvisor specifically, but I'm talking about those guys that give terrible 5-star ratings. Affiliate networks, those could be improved by it. They're not directly acquiring the traffic, but they're only part of the value chain. So either you're acquiring the business, which is the real job of any intermediary in the business, or you're providing some other service that's compelling enough. There's still some small room for disruption for blockchain within the travel business like this. As a movement, I took a quick check on the coin schedule website earlier. 314 different public coin offerings have been in place so far. That's incredible. 314 different companies have raised funds by selling their coins in advance. Is it bull or is it buzz? For me, it's bull. Sorry, it's an interesting database concept. It can be replaced with a good public database or a third-party intermediary or just auditing your partners. Is it a reason to change the world in and of itself? In my opinion, no. Not yet, but we'll see where things settle in the next couple of months or the next couple of years. Blockchain is where data is stored and where data is authenticated. Cryptographic currencies are things like Bitcoin. There are multiple currencies today. You've got Bitcoin, Bitcoin Cash, you've got Ethereum, I've got Litecoin here. I think there's about 7 or 8 main ones. It needs a blockchain to run. It needs a wallet to live in, so it's a virtual wallet, just like you have for, say, Apple Pay. You'll have a virtual wallet where you store your cryptographic tokens and say, this is what I own. And it's either in the name of a transaction, such as a smart contract or a transfer, so you're actually sending money to somebody or you're buying a seat. The main player in the space that I can find is Coinbase. Those have been powering the exchange where you turn dollars into Bitcoin for quite a while. They've split their offering from the original Coinbase into Coinbase Commerce, where you can say, look, I'm buying something, I'm going to pay so much in Ethereum, that's where I send it to, and then it's going to you engage with your app on your phone and take it from there. This is what we had been looking at in the past. It's the Stripe Bitcoin card plugin. If you're already working with Stripe, you get this for free, and they've announced recently that they're ending support for it. So, there's been a mixed race with who's actually taking Bitcoin in terms of here's what we can spend, and I think the biggest applications today are going to be about how people can do some serious smart contract stuff rather than just treating it like a wallet. Nobody's really accepting Bitcoin for product yet. Not completely out of time. I'll throw in a couple of bonuses. Back to mobile, there's a whole new wave of smart messaging coming in. That builds right into text messages. They're ubiquitous, they're everywhere, and this could be as ubiquitous. It's like an app without an app, a boarding card straight into your rich messaging display. It's something to watch. Accelerated mobile pages. If you're in the customer acquisition business and you need some quick SEO hacking, this might be one for you. One click on this, and it's Google serving you the content straight away. You might have seen this kind of UI already. That delivers through a content delivery network. Your geeks know all about this. Take a look at accelerated mobile pages. I think it's well worth a quick look if it's not too far from your current technology. Your CMS provider will probably do it already. It's pretty cool. I think that's a buzz. Quick win for very little change. And this is something that I've been tracking for a while, ever since Google Glass. Intel have come out with a really cool new way of doing smart glasses. If you wear glasses, you'll find this kind of compelling. They don't look like the old dorky things that used to go around your face. It's something that's a little laser. It's actually shooting a laser beam straight into your retina that looks like that for you. And it's completely non-distracting. And part of Intel's offering is that they only take out the good stuff and leave and leave the key information so you're not getting 25 alerts per second when somebody's just beating you on a puzzle game. I think that's a buzz, nothing that you need to work on right yet. That's why I've prepared this. What should shape your IT agenda today? It's a quick one, cameras up. This is when you should start looking at chat and voice, start looking at it now. Wait on blockchain. I think there's something revolutionary here. I don't think we've actually found the revolutionary product yet. AMP is a quick win for SEO, and Messenger apps is something that you can start delivering on straight away. IoT is going to be part of your future. We're not going to call it IoT. There'll be new platforms, fun platforms that come out. Vault is something that's still in development, so it's obviously a wait, as is RCS. You shouldn't be looking at this with your IT team until it's been adopted by all the mobile carriers. Otherwise, you're just going to be delivering some service to some users and different to another. The reason for that is when you're developing a new product, you're putting in a huge amount of effort for very little return at the beginning. And then all of a sudden, there's a turning point where your return will shoot up. We're not quite there with crypto or some of these other technologies yet. But just like you'll get a return like that, there's another technology coming along where there's a higher return than this technology, and that will surpass yours over time. And at some stage, you'll switch from one to the other. We'll switch from accelerated mobile pages in 10 years' time to the next generation of mobile technology. We might be all using RCS in the future, who knows? But the key thing is that some technologies will fail. You'll just stop because you can't get over that initial hump. And I'm worried about some of the stuff that we've seen, especially in the crypto space, where probably on one of these lines here. Bitcoin, strictly speaking, as a transaction currency, is a failure. It has not worked out. You can't spend Bitcoin properly today for travel. There have been some promises. I haven't seen the real stuff, and we're kind of into this Bitcoin Cash thing or Ethereum or something else. It has failed. It's good for holding a huge amount of dollar and then converting it back, but not really for anything else. One last thing, when is the right kind of timing to start looking at this? Given all of those wait and go, when should you be looking at this? Start looking at crypto now. If your current payment provider gives it to you for free, take it. It might be worth a punt for a press release. I don't think it's worth anything more than that, but do take a look at it now. It might be an easy thing to integrate. Start looking at your chat and voice UIs today, because the structure you're putting on your knowledge bases, your support content, all of your team, that will pay dividend in the future, and this will be part of your discussions with your providers today that you need for the future. Bots are about a year away. AI in real terms is about 5 years away. But the providers you're already working with, like Google, like Facebook, they're using it for you. If you're using text-to-speech, those guys are using it for you. Messenger applications, wait a year. RCS, wait a year, maybe 3. Vault is about 3 years down the road, and do AMP now.
Thank you. I'm Kevin O'Shaughnessy. Have a great ITB.